evening, and welcome to the Selectmen's meeting for Thursday, October 16th, 2014. The agenda for tonight is, I think I'll waive the approval of minutes if it's okay. I didn't finish reading them, and I don't think you had either. Okay. Questions from the public regarding items not on the agenda, the application of Village Motors South, administrative procedures discussion, appointments, and Selectmen Town Administrator reports. We're going to go out of order.
You want to take the Volvo first?
Yes. Can we do the Village Motors South first? Would you join us at the table?
Thank you.
Could you introduce yourself and tell us what you're doing?
My name is Dan Leahy. I'm currently General Manager of Volvo Village of Norwell, as well as Audi Norwell and Porsche Norwell. We're in the process of hopefully moving the Volvo Village of Norwell to 425 Lincoln Street in Hingham, which is the former R&R Marine Store and/or Fred Shaw's old Saab building, and rename it Volvo Village of Hingham. We're doing this as a result of the manufacturers requiring exclusivity in facilities, meaning we have to split up the Porsche Audi, so we're forced to move Porsche into the Volvo building, and we find the Lincoln Street an excellent opportunity for Volvo because of its proximity to the heart of our clientele, our Volvo clientele, plus with all the new residential development down there, it gives us somewhat of an exclusivity. Plus the new terminal at the MBTA boatyard allows us a great promotional value of drop your car, we'll drive you to the boat, stop and have a drink at Almanove, and then come back over. Maybe in a different order than that, but I have been in the business about 35 years, both corporate and retail. I'm a resident of Cohasset for 33 years. I am a single father of 6 children, and I have been working for Village Automotive Group for just under 15 years, running any number of the currently 8 stores that we have around the greater Boston area, which includes 3 Volvo stores, a Hyundai store, a Nissan store, Porsche Audi, and a Honda store.
Excellent.
That's my minimal bio.
It's very good. When will you be opening?
Early November. We've just finished up, if all goes according to plan. We've just finished up with the lease negotiations with the A.W. Perry Company, who are the owner of the property that we're going to. The property was not in great shape. It does require some movement of utilities, some ADA remodifications. We have to install automotive equipment such as lifts, an office, computers, telephones. Having been abandoned for, I don't know how long it is, certainly 2 years, the building deteriorated, so we're in the process of aligning all of the vendors, both the landlord as well as us. We both have our separate responsibilities. And if all goes according to plan, we should be in there in early November. We have, I didn't bring it with me, but we have certification from Volvo to move the site. It stays within what we call a PMA, a primary market area. And they have authorized us, and we're signing a long-term lease, long-term meaning 10 years, with renewal options.
Excellent. Mr. Healy, any questions?
Yes, to the town administrator. Does this go through site plan review, planning board?
I don't think so. No, not this. The project itself did.
Oh, the project's already gone through, or?
But this is just, you're acting on the license itself.
Okay, I'm just curious as to the actual physical.
Having been through this, at present time, we're not modifying anything, so we don't have to go through site plan review. The ADA part of it, the ramp for the handicap, is in front of the building inspector because the pitch on that was too extreme by today's regulation. but there's nothing going on the site other than equipment being added to it. They will be back in front of the various boards soon, because behind the building, parcel B, it's identified as, they'll be coming forth to formalize that, which it's currently just crushed stone and weeds. But in order to make the site functional as a retail site, if you're not familiar with it, right now you can only access from Lincoln Street, and if you are headed north on Lincoln Street and you want to go south, you have to go up to Weymouth, make a U-turn at Lowe's, and come back down. If you are at the lights across from, on the side of 99 headed south, there's a no U-turn sign there. So that would mean you'd have to take a left into the bank, go down to the end of the road, make a U-turn, come back out, and then pull into the lot. So the design that will be presented is to finish off the back, attached to the road, the existing roadway there, so that a client could come in, go out the back, and come out at the functional lights. So if you're coming north, you come in and egress through the back. If you're headed south, you make a left turn and come in the backside. It's sketched out, but that's the landholder's obligation to us as part of the lease. But they can't do that, you know, we're too late now to
So
start.
you're coming out from behind TD Bank,
Yes. Yeah, they own that property, and there's an egress back there.
so that'll be a permitting issue for sure.
Correct. Yes.
Okay, all right.
It sounds like it's really going to improve throughput for the cars, though.
Well, it'll make it realistic. Right now, it's not a retail site. You just can't have a site where you only can come in and out, as restricted as it is. And when you force, regardless of the retail business, when you force inconvenience, you shoot yourself in the foot. You know, it's not a customer experience that they're particularly happy with.
Excellent. Mr. G, any questions? No, you answered all mine. We wish you good luck. So is the Porsche dealership still staying where it is? You're just splitting?
Porsche dealership is being moved into what is now the Volvo store.
Oh, nice.
That's a renovation. The Audi store, if you've been up there, is under construction. The steel started going up this week, and that's that was a full site review in the town of Norwell, as was Porsche, but Porsche was less impact because it was a renovation. And the Audi store should be complete sometime in June of next year, Porsche sometime in April, and the Volvo, we have a commitment in the next 3 years with Volvo to improve the appearance of that existing building we're moving into.
Excellent. Anything more? Any questions from the audience? Okay, I'll take a motion.
I'll move that we approve the issuance of a Class 1 seller's agent license to Village Motors South DBA Volvo Village Hingham, 425 Lincoln Street, for the 2014 calendar year expiring January 1, 2015.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
Thank
Have a
you.
good evening. Thank you for coming.
Thank you very much.
Before we turn to tonight's agenda, I need to say something important, and I will ask that the full statement be entered into the record. When I became a selectman, I swore an oath to the town. The principles that guide me are protecting the taxpayer, the town, and our heritage, and to faithfully perform the duties of selectmen. The past 2 weeks have been very difficult in this room, and as chair, it's my fault. While the motives that drove me and the passion I bring to this elected office were pure, I have to admit that I was wrong in the way I approached the issue. When my motives and methods were challenged, I didn't stop and take a breath and listen. I got my back up and tried to defend myself, and as a friend said, I didn't put the shovel down, but rather kept digging myself into a hole. I have learned painfully what many elected officials before me have learned at all levels of government. Slow down, listen, and be willing to accept the fact that sometimes I can be wrong. I once read a quote from Lloyd Benson, who, for you guys are probably all way too young, he was a U.S. Senator from Texas, and Secretary of the U.S. Treasury. He was in hot water for something he'd done and was quoted as saying, "I'm not known to make many mistakes, but when I do, it's a doozy." To which I say, amen. I want to personally apologize to the town, and most important, to Roger Fernandez. I also want to say I agree with something that was in today's Hingham Journal editorial, and I think it is important to include this in my formal comments, and I quote, "Town employees on all levels and in all positions are the heart of Hingham. Many have committed their lives and decades working for a town they love. I share that love of Hingham. It's why I ran for selectman. I've come to realize that this should have been left with Ted, the town administrator, as it is a human resources management issue. Several years ago, the Government Study Committee recommended clarification of the authority of the town administrator, especially with regard to human resource management. I have come to realize that as well, plus I was on the Government Study Committee. Living, it's a different thing. If we had that in place, this would never have happened. The lines need to be drawn. In proposing a remedy, I'm proposing we remedy this by creating a town administrator bylaw, clearly outlining his authority. Ted and I have talked about this and are in agreement. I'm asking my colleagues to support the formation of a committee composed of Nelson Ross, Tom Carey, the chair of the Personnel Board, David Pace, or his designee, and the chair of the Advisory Committee, Mary Power, or her designee. The bylaw would go before the 2015 annual town meeting. I've learned a lot in the past several weeks, and I promise to be a better selectman as a result. We need to come together and continue the important work of the town as we move forward. Thank you, and I'll ask for a motion to form the committee and to include these remarks in the record, and then move on to tonight's agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? We're going to open it up for comments. Okay, we'll take the vote. So, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay. Paul, did you have any comments, or did you want to just open it up for questions?
A lot of people here. Let's let them get it out and move on.
Mr. G?
No, I mean, I agree with Paul. I mean,
Me too.
I'm here to listen to people, so.
Yep. Okay. Tina?
Thank you. Tina Sherwood, 16 Partridge Drive. I sent this letter to the Board of Selectmen earlier. We just want to say we believe that the following 3 points will need to be addressed in order to right the wrongs that were made at the Selectmen's meeting on October 2nd, 2014, to continue the proud tradition of open and honest government in Hingham. The first is the issue of the DPW vehicles should be re-examined and voted on by the Advisory Committee, Capital Outlay, the Personnel Board, and Town Meeting. Town bylaws should be amended to establish uniform standards for determining which positions warrant personal use of a town vehicle and to protect employees against arbitrary and capricious changes to established practices. Number 2, anonymous letters with scurrilous and false allegations against town employees have no place in Hingham, and the circumstances surrounding the use of the letter regarding Roger Fernandez have not been adequately explained or explored. We request that the Selectmen cooperate with a proper investigation into this matter by the State Ethics Commission. Number 3, given the outcome of the spurious allegations against Roger Fernandez and the fact that he was proved to have committed no wrongdoing, the town of Hingham should pay his reasonable legal fees incurred defending himself. town council should be asked to determine if this is authorized, and if not, should be instructed to draft a warrant article to achieve this. Thank you.
Let's see if we can't. Let's take the easiest one first. We have all three said numerous times in the paper here that the letter that was received about September 25th was never used. The issue that was raised third week in August
Yes.
and responded to by the town administrator September 18th, September 15th. And that's when it was decided to have an executive session. So the spurious letter came well after that. And we've all said we took a vote, we've said it, and then we took a vote to reaffirm the Board of Selectmen have never, will never rise to the occasion of doing anything with anonymous letters. The week that that one came in, we got 5, not on one particular person. These were all different ones.
And I appreciate that.
Okay.
In the transcript of the meeting at the Selectmen's meeting on October 7th, that was referenced a few times.
Perhaps there's a disconnect here. I received a call from a citizen asking to investigate something. Had nothing to do with that letter. And I'm not giving that person's name up because if any of you came to me and asked me to look into something, I would not give your name up either. So the letters that got everybody upset, including the three of us and the town administrator,
Correct.
came well after that and were never used for anything except trash. Okay? The vehicles. All departments are being looked at. What is going to happen, there is a selectmen's policy. It's on our list of objectives. That is going to be presented to us sometime in the next few weeks, establishing and re-looking at the rules of who gets to take home cars. And it's not only the DPW, it's engineering, it's everybody. There's maybe just a little bit of history here. In 2009, there was a major reorganization of the DPW. A well-deserved promotion, Randy Sylvester became the superintendent. A new department was created called the Town Engineer, headed by Roger Fernandez. Harry Sylvester, who I don't think he was here when Peter Hobart was here, but he was pretty close, had been highway supervisor forever. He was transferred to the engineering department and was assistant projects engineer. That department has its own budget, operating and capital. Under Randy is the DPW organization with their own capital budget, operating budget, and structure. Out of the DPW budget or department, there are 4 people on call. If you call dispatch, they'll rattle off 4 names. Those are the current on-call for emergencies. Randy, and then the 3 names you hear the most. Mike Mullen, who is the highway supervisor, Jeff Hanrahan, who's tree and park, and those 2 are like 2 pieces of Velcro. If there's something going wrong, one isn't too far behind the other on the scanner. And then the job we all would like least to have, Steve Dempsey is sewer. So all of those are currently on call. The town administrator is going to look at the policy and make recommendations to us. I'm going to give all my information to capital outlay so that they can consider how they want to refine the process. Because I spent 6 years on there, and every year it gets better and better and better and refined, and this is now an area that they need to think about and look at.
Okay, that's great. Thank you. And
Roger's legal bills, we'll talk about that with Roger. I'm sure it'll be an outcome happy for everybody.
thank you.
Laura?
Good evening, Laura Burns, 96 Hersey Street, and I have a question that I'd like to ask of Mr. Healy and Mr. Gannon relative, well, it arose for me as I was reading this chairman's letter to the editor of the Journal today. The letter was describing how the personnel hearing that of 2 weeks ago came about. And it says, a majority of the Board of Selectmen asked the town administrator to invite Mr. Fernandez to meet with us to review the function and requirements of the town engineer position with the concern that the nature of the job may have changed in complexity since the time Mr. Fernandez was hired. And then, excuse me, third paragraph, the Board of Selectmen decided that it was prudent to examine all job descriptions relating to new development and construction in the town to be certain our prior professional requirements for key management job positions reflect the current state of growth and expansion in the town. And I was confused because I was at the meeting 2 weeks ago, and I stand here also representing former Selectman Tully, who couldn't be here tonight because she's on the road between Buffalo and Cleveland, but called and asked me to represent her concerns as well. I went back to listen to what was said about how that hearing developed, and what the chairman said on that day was, and I wrote it down to make sure that I didn't misquote anybody. An issue was brought to the Board of Selectmen, and tonight is fact-finding only. The issue that was brought to the Board of Selectmen was an issue of credentials and education on the resume and on the application form. And when Selectman Healy asked who brought the complaint, the chairman said, with all due respect, the people do not want to come forward who are questioning his education credentials. And then you went on to say, it's pretty easy. If Roger has the degrees, then this whole thing goes away. And I felt that that was not adequately described by this description of a decision to review all job descriptions. It sounded to me 2 weeks ago, and still does, like it was about what Roger wrote on his resume and his application form, and people were questioning his educational credentials based on, I guess, the phone call that you received. So I just wanted to ask Mr. Healy, were you part of a decision that it was prudent to examine all job descriptions relating to new development and construction in the town to be certain our prior professional requirements for key management job positions reflect the current state of growth and expansion in the town? I mean,
No.
it states that there was a Board of Selectmen decision to look at all
and
these job
I think it's
descriptions.
important that the public understand the role of the highway here. The planning board, of which I was a member for 19 years, permits the development, permits the roadways in this town. Any applicant that comes in front of the Hingham Planning Board is typically represented or has with them an engineer, a plan that's stamped by a professional engineer. The town hires an engineer who is also a professional engineer. Galen Hersey, when he put his subdivision in off of Hersey Street, came in with an engineer. We hired an engineer to examine whether or not his project could work. It had nothing to do with the highway department. It simply did not. Where the highway comes in is after the roadway is built and before it's accepted as a public way. That is the role, that is the relationship. We've worked extensively with the highway department over the years because a lot of these roadways come in as private roadways and they sit there for a number of years before they're offered up for public acceptance. And what that means is once the town accepts the roadway, we're responsible for the maintenance. And that is why the regulations of the planning board are so exacting. You know, I know how much cover is required for subsurface utilities. I know what the subsurface base has to consist of and how deep it has to be. We're not building the Appian Way, but my rule of thumb is I want a roadway built in this town to last 50 years. Because when it crumbles, I don't want to be around. And we have a distinct and separate role from the highway. That's not to say I haven't conferred with Mr. Fernandez over the years, because I have, in an effort to bring our regulations, keep them current with DOT, make sure that, we're fairly in line. Our regulations exceed that of the DOT. We're a very strict town when it comes to road building. But I want to assure the public that any project that's been built in this town in the last 20 years has been overseen not by one professional engineer, but several. And as a point of clarification, when Mr. Fernandez came before us, advancing the Derby Street overpass and the corridor project that we've submitted to the state for funding, there were some questions on traffic capacities. The town hired a traffic engineer, good, sensible move, outside of Mr. Fernandez's range of expertise. We looked at the numbers. There were some questions on it. I asked for a little bit of peer review in a friendly sort of way, brought in an expert that I have total confidence in, total respect for, corroborated the numbers that we were being presented. There's always a check and balance, always. Nothing is built in this town without a check and a balance. I can assure you. I'm not sure where you got that, but I mean, that wasn't my memory of how we were ending up in a executive session hearing, with all due respect.
Well, Laura, before I turn it over to Paul, it is common in industry to review jobs. The issue we looked at and the issue that was put on our table is, does Roger, in his current position, have the credentials? If he doesn't, how do we get him those credentials to be able to draw plans, to be able to do other things as the town engineer?
In your letter, you state the Board of Selectmen decided to examine all job descriptions relating to new development and construction in the town, and I'm asking Mr. Gannon
we're going to
if
be
he
looking at
was
that.
a part of that decision to do that. Is that a decision the board's made?
No.
Okay, so-
There's been no, well, let me just finish. There's been no
I'm sorry.
decision made on that. I understand that that's part of our responsibilities to look at a lot of things, but just so you know, and I think I made it clear enough, and on September 15th, when I did receive Ted's letter, I had specific questions. And I'll be honest with you, I wasn't sure how they were going to get answered or who they was going to answer them or if they were going to get answered. So I raised them. And then I, at some point in time, I understood we were having a hearing, or it was on the agenda, and I was happy to address it, whether it was before that or during the meeting. But I will tell you that I've learned, and I know we've all learned things being on the board, is that what probably should have happened was, at least on my part, and I think we all agree to a certain extent, and Ted and I have talked about this, that if I have questions, our lines of communication, we're going to work hard to make sure that happens, because those questions of mine could have been answered probably before the meeting, and if they were answered, because I was very satisfied with Roger's responses, I'm not sure we would have had it on the agenda.
Right.
That's all I can say.
I get it. Well, my
Me
only
too.
purpose here now today, and I'll stop taking up your time, is that I regret to say that I feel that the background that's provided in this letter for why that hearing came about doesn't appear to be factual to me, because there's a description of decisions that the Board of Selectmen didn't make. So I leave you with that. Selectman Tully also called to express her concern about that to me, and that's all I have
And
to say.
some of
Sure.
those were conversations between us and the town manager, town administrator, so they
I
were
know
not-
how that works,
Okay,
but
yes.
that, if one selectman wants to do something, the town administrator will check with other selectmen and see, is that what you want to do? I don't get the impression that actually happened, so that's all I have to say. Thank you.
I understand.
Thank you, Irma. My name is Mark Duff. I'm the fire chief, although I may not be after tonight. My statement is directed to the Board of Selectmen in general and not any one individual. I'm going to read my remarks because I want to make sure my position is clearly understood. It pains me to get up here tonight and speak to this issue, but I feel it is essential that you get some feedback from a town employee not directly connected with what occurred. For the record, I'm a 40-year employee of the Hingham Fire Department, and ironically, prior to my work at the fire department, I worked at the DPW for 2.5 years. I'm also fourth-generation Hingham, and with the exception of Dot Gallo, I'm the senior town employee in length of service. I mention that because in this particular situation, I believe I have perhaps a better feeling as to the current sentiment of the community and its employees as anyone. It's no secret that I will be retiring in the near future, and I'm not a candidate for the Board of Selectmen. I have the utmost respect for the Board of Selectmen and anyone willing to serve in your position, and sometimes having to take what I consider unnecessary and uncalled for abuse. That having been said, as a 40-year employee, I have never seen the credibility and the integrity of the board being questioned as much as it currently is. Town employees, including senior staff, feel very, very threatened as to their job security and their ability to speak freely. Everyone needs to be able to speak freely, starting with that man right over there. The idea that an anonymous letter can create a situation that we just came through is beyond belief. I do realize that an anonymous letter was not the only driving force. With budget season approaching, it is imperative that a cohesive, trusting relationship exists. The problem now, whether it is real or imagined, concocted, or however you want to describe it, has become real in the eyes of the public and our employees. On numerous occasions, I have publicly stated that this is a wonderful town to live in, to be employed in, and I am very confident that will continue. The fact remains, however, that the issue of how Roger Fernandes' investigation, when handled, needs to be fully aired and resolved with the assurances that what took place against any town employee will not happen again. This includes anonymous letters. This needs to be collectively addressed by the board so the community can continue to move forward. Town employees of all ranks are afraid to speak out in fear of retribution. Due to the current atmosphere, some elected and appointed committee members are uneasy and uncomfortable coming into town hall to conduct business. Yesterday, I spoke with a 27-year employee of the town who stated, "I have never seen the tension and uneasiness that currently exists." I cannot help but to make the comparison that what is currently going on is similar to what happened during Watergate, particularly the statement made by John Dean to Richard Nixon. We have a cancer close to the presidency that's growing. It's growing daily, it's compounding, it's growing geometrically now, because it compounds itself, unquote. That may be an overestimate, but I can assure you that's the direction this issue is going in. I believe you people can fix this. And it will be a long time before the situation goes away if you don't. But I do think, Irma, you perhaps started it tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Beth. Come on up.
Bruce Rebuffo, One Dwiggins Path. I applaud you for the apology. That was 2 weeks overdue. This is an issue that I have stayed out of, but when employees have called me, as they have in the last 2 weeks, I am concerned not only for the 3 members of this board, but for the town of Hingham. The first thing we have to do, I think Tina Sherwood said it well. I heard your response. I didn't hear a commitment that we will make Roger whole. Are you going to make Roger whole?
The board will vote on it. I can't decide for the board. We will do that, Bruce.
Okay. Second question. How did this proceed this far? I was a selectman for 6 years, and I knew Roger's credentials. We all knew Roger's credentials. And as Lissa Tully explained, he wasn't hired to be the town engineer. He was hired to be the Greenbush coordinator. But because of his performance, people like Dot Gallo tapped into his expertise. And as a result of that, we made him the town engineer. So everybody knew his performance was superb, and there was no question. Now we have on TV his credentials being disparaged by this board. We should be embarrassed for that. And an apology doesn't make that go away, because there'll be future employers of Roger that will be chagrined to see that. So I think you need to do more. A letter of apology formally, signed by all three of you, to say this should never have happened. The third thing that I think needs to happen is there have been anonymous letters. When I sat in your chair, I got them. I know Laura Burns got them, and John Riley got them. And we ignored those, except to the fact that if there were other letters who were signed. Now, the fact that we don't know who this anonymous letter writer was leads me to believe that it was only the anonymous letter that precipitated this. And in America, and I have two lawyers here, you should know who your accusers are. So there must be somebody's name somewhere. And I think until that comes forth, you're going to have a credibility problem, as Mark just said. So I would encourage the board to be forthright, per your promise that you made when you became chair. And I would hope that you would take that to task. And I thank you for your time.
Thank you, Bruce. And we have continually said the anonymous letter that was so vile showed up about a month after I received a phone call from a citizen who did not want to be named. You can come up and...
Judy Sneath, 89 North Street. I really just have one question, just because I feel like this part of this saga has not been so clear to me, and maybe everybody else knows. But you mentioned tonight that something happened at the end of August, but at the I think on October 2nd, there was some question about what that exactly was and how Roger's resume and application actually got onto your desks. And I would imagine that if something happens that has to do with somebody's personnel record, that the head of the department would be involved with that. So yeah, my question is kind of, can you give us just the detail, maybe, week by week, of kind of what happened, and how are we assured that that won't happen?
You heard that the town administrator and I have developed a process that will not happen. The folders that were prepared for the three of us were prepared by the HR director, and he confiscated them afterward.
But what happened in August? Because you said this didn't happen.
I received a phone call.
Do you want me to take them through those events?
Sure.
Okay. Maybe I can give you some clarification. In August, I believe it was August 19th, I'm not sure, but it was the third week of August. I know this for certain because the fourth week of August I was on vacation. My daughter was going to college, and we stayed home that week crying. And so I was going to be out of the office the week after. I met with Irma, and then she was going to be out of the office for 2 weeks on a trip. And so she met with me, she presented the issue to me, she asked me to investigate it. I began my investigation that week. I was on vacation the last week of August. I concluded it the first week of September. I gave the Selectmen a report on September 15th with my conclusions. That letter is on the record now. And subsequent to that, I believe it was the 16th that Irma asked for the agenda item to be put on as an executive session to move forward with the issue. And that's what transpired.
And Judy, I've said I shouldn't have done that. I should have left it.
I appreciate that, and I admire you for your statement tonight.
That's the truth.
But yeah, no, I do. I was unclear on sort of how
that's the sequence.
How this could get this far.
And I also read a statement last week that David Basler asked me to make, because he is relentless in personnel records.
It just feels
so-
like this fell through the cracks.
So that he's worried that somebody thinks he gives it out willingly, and he doesn't. But when we interview people, folders are prepared for us, and in the case of 2 weeks ago, a folder was prepared with those documents in it. When we're done, David is usually, if he's not there that evening, David is haunting us the next day, where's the paperwork? So he takes it back and shreds it.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay.
You want to take up the issue of the vehicle bylaw, or do you want me to prepare that for
We
you?
touched on it. Why don't you go ahead and talk about it a little bit?
If the board so desires, I'll give you a a policy on vehicle use, which will clearly set forth criteria on who can take a vehicle home and who cannot, and what the purpose of it is for. And I'll have that for you for the 30th at your next meeting.
Thank you.
So
And
moved.
Second.
so, third, we all agree, if there's anything that's come out of this, two good things: the selectmen's policy on take-home vehicles. Our world has changed. We have new departments. The world, when that was written, was a pretty simple world, and it needs to be refined. Every time we create new departments or look at departments, we really should take a broader view of it. So that policy, and then the fact that we're going to move forward, if you all agree, but I think we already said yes to that,
Yes, we did.
with a committee for a bylaw for the town administrator's authority.
We do a vote on the vehicle policy.
Right,
That we want to redo it? Well, we got
We didn't vote yet.
Yeah, we're waiting to vote.
to redo it, or do you want to wait till he gives us something?
No, I think the motion was just for me to present you one at the
Yes.
30th.
Yes.
So moved?
Oh, I
Second?
second already.
All in favor? Aye.
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 Okay.
Okay.
Anything else?
Well, I think the next item on your agenda would be your 710 item, administrative procedures.
I think we pretty much,
Yeah, I guess the public expects some kind of comment from the two Pauls and some degree of another. I first met Mark Duff when I worked for the Highway Department.
Mark Duff
That was
worked
back
on
in
my
the day.
house.
We were at the dump. I worked at the dump. Herbie Cole was the superintendent, and it was a job I needed, actually. Not funny. I used it to support my family. And I served as a policeman here in Hingham for 11 years, and I lived in this town. I had 3 daughters. My wife raised them. And while I'm not a town employee anymore, although I guess I am statutorily in some way, I have a very strong respect for the people that work in this town. And to me, they're the heart and soul of what makes town government work well and right. So anytime I see something that I consider unjust, I don't like it. And there's a man sitting in this room tonight that had something I thought happened unjustly to him as a town employee, and I worked very hard to help him. So I'm not playing favorites here. I've known Roger Fernandez for 10 years. He and I don't go out for drinks, but I respect him professionally. I find him to be a dedicated public servant. I know he's incurred the wrath of some, including a gentleman in this room who, if you look at the minutes of August 19th, I think it'll give you the answer that we're looking for. But he went through the investigation, he endured it, and Ms. Lauder has apologized. I'm not going to beat her over the head. That's not what I'm doing. We work as a team here. We work as a team here. And it would do the town no good for us to be fractious. Perhaps our views philosophically may differ. But I hope that the strong show of public support for Mr. Fernandez is an affirmation of his value and his worth, not only as a town employee, but as a man. And I hope that something like this never happens again. It's not going to happen when I'm sitting here, no matter what. And I don't think it's going to happen with Ms. Lauder sitting here again either, and certainly not with Mr. Gann. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Paul. And if I could just tell folks that I feel, in many points, similar to Paul in terms of the value of Roger and how the fact that this process can't happen again. And I will tell you that I will take some responsibility because, when I first thought of the issues, and it wasn't to do with Roger, it had to do with the trucks, I looked at it in a narrow way. And when people spoke, I thought about it, and it didn't register like it should register. But in reflection afterwards, I want to say this, that I want to thank some of my dearest friends and people I didn't even know who spoke to me in a very calm and measured way as to what was in the best interest of the town. And the more I talked to them, the more I realized that we didn't handle it the correct way, that it was a mistake. And just as importantly, people this gentleman called me the other day, and I know his name, but I don't think I've ever met him. He said, we can't have things like this happening in our town. I'm watching it on TV, and I'm getting upset because of what's going on. And it was more the divisiveness than any particular issue. And I felt responsible for that, and I promised myself after speaking to him that I will do everything in my power to make sure that the good name of Hingham is kept at a high level, and that our deliberations are kept at a high level, because I love this town. I haven't been here that long, but I love this town. And I've met so many wonderful people in here, and I'm going to do the best job I can. And as I said the other night, I try to keep an open mind. I listen to everything. I strive to be fair, and I try to make the right decision for Hingham. And I will tell you this, that if at some point in time, and if the information I had, my decision wasn't the right decision for Hingham, I would happily change it and try to fix it. Thank you.
I'm going to echo what Paul says. We promise to be open. That sometimes can bring in a lot of discussion. We listen to you all. We listen to the employees. I really care about the employees. The people know that I do, the employees. I know not every one of them by name, because I don't know every one of the 600 school employees, but I really care about them. And this was not our best moment, but I think we've come out of this better with some opportunity to look at some of our bylaws and to create new ones, so this doesn't happen again, because we come and go. And new people coming in, different personalities, different ideas, but at least you're starting with town bylaws and policies. So thank you all, and keep telling us what you want us to do. We obviously listen.
Before the folks disperse, there's an article in the paper, in the Journal, and I'd like to thank the Patriot Ledger for this flag initiative we're trying to get going. All we need now is some money. I want to thank Representative Bradley for a very generous donation. My brothers down the hall, hopeful and anticipate they'll make a very generous donation as well. This is something for the troops. These are men and women that have grown up in your community and have enlisted to serve this country. So I would hope that you could find it in yourselves to spread the word and perhaps drop a donation down at the
Treasurer's office.
Treasurer's office. Thank you very much. I was up at the library last week, just kind of roaming around. And they have a nice display there about books that people read. That maybe some of you are in the room are up there. But there was a town employee that I recognized immediately, and she's a very kind woman. And her book was, her favorite book was Handle with Care. And I thought that was so apt a title in light of what we're going through. So I think we've all learned a lesson here. We will handle our town employees with care and respect, so that this is just a chapter that we can look in the rearview mirror and never return to. So thank you.
Okay. Come on up, Mark. Nobody can hear you.
Just on the flag issue, I know during the 350th celebration of the town, which was in 1985, all the town departments flew the American flag with the 350 flag below it. Might be something you want to think about, Paul, to buy enough so that we want at the fire stations and in front of town hall and
Great idea.
GIR hall and every place where we have a town flag.
Thanks, Mark. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, you have several votes to take before you can close for the evening.
Okay.
They're just administrative
Can we have
issues and
some
votes. Unless you want to have any
reports?
more public comment. I don't know.
Nope.
It doesn't look like everyone is satisfied.
Okay.
Your first vote is to appoint Susan Kane to the Bear Cove Park Committee for a 3-year term expiring June 30th.
So moved.
Move through.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
You want me to read the next one?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
A move to approve the change of operating hours at Packaging Center, Inc., DBA Stop and Shop Supermarket Number 035, 400 Lincoln Street, to 10 o'clock a.m. on Sundays, effective October 23, 2014.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, let's get everybody out of here. Huh?
No. You got 2 votes and you're done.
I've got some stuff I want to like thank yous, a big one for the accident.
Okay.
Okay. Oh, good. All right. Who's next? You?
Oh, sure, I'll make it.
Okay.
Move to approve the change of operating hours at E&S Group, Inc., DBA Hingham Liquors, 118 North Street, to 10 a.m. on Sundays, effective October 23, 2014.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
So, you
Move
want
to approve the agreement between the town of Hingham and Minutemen Trucks for a 2014 International 4400 knuckle boom crane in the amount of $175,543.16. This knuckle boom crane is in the DPW FYI 2015 capital budget.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay. How about town administrator reports?
I've had a busy week. I don't have anything extra to report to you.
Gee, I wonder why you were busy. Paul and Paul?
Talked out.
Did you-
Well, I'll just say this, that I've mentioned it, the last few meetings, but it is coming up on Wednesday, October 22nd, from 7 to 9 at the middle school. We're having an informational forum to help prevent drug abuse, and we would just ask everybody in the town. It certainly affects people, families, friends, neighbors, property. It's important. I literally was speaking to somebody today who was recounting the problems and the pain and the suffering that go along with addiction. So I just think if it would be helpful for everybody if we could get as many people there to get educated as to what the problems are, to know what the services are that are available to people that need them, and that we can come together and put together a task force so we can join the other communities in the South Shore to fight the scourge of addiction.
Thank you.
Great idea.
I've got 4 items. The first is of which I want to recognize our first responders who responded to an absolutely horrible accident Saturday night. We happened to be home, which is a rarity, around 6:30, and we heard the call. Captain Billy Powers was on duty. It was a two-car accident at Kilby and Rockland Street. A woman was ejected from a car, and it really, because I hope everybody's name, and if I've forgotten you, I'm sorry. But we listened to Captain Powers on the scanner, calling to his men and women, and listened to the activity. Medevac was called in, and it landed at the bathing beach parking lot. So let me, and if it is impressive when Captain Powers is on and we have a serious incident. You get an immediate feeling that everything's okay, even though in this case it was really not okay. So let me read the list and tell you who all was involved, because this was a huge amount of our people. Captain Bill Powers was on duty, and he was first on the scene. And between Captain Powers and Lieutenant DiNapoli, they may well have saved this. In fact, they probably saved this woman's life. It was assumed she was dead. But when Bill Powers got there, he was able to bring her back, and then Lieutenant DiNapoli was able to sustain her until they took her off in the medevac. So Kevin Bliss, Chris Schultes, Mark Durling, Jeff Saunders, Mike Crow. Special recognition, and I mean this, and I know this man, Lieutenant DiNapoli and Captain Powers. Lieutenant DiNapoli, he was the first to call for a med flight. Usually there's a protocol, but he realized she was so seriously injured. You could hear him in the background, and then Captain Powers was all over it. And this may have given her the best chance of life. I don't know how she is. I want to also recognize Bob Olson, Deputy Olson, who coordinated the landing zone at the bathing beach parking lot, and also from our Hingham Police Department, Jim Foss, and it's glad to see him back in action. He was injured, but it's nice to see him back in action. Sergeant McAdams and Bob Achille also, and there was a dispatcher. I did not get the young man's name, but he was just steady Eddie working with Captain Powers. It was very, very impressive, and he was right on. If we're worried about our new centralized dispatch center, if everybody is like this, and I'm assuming he's young because he sounded young, if everybody's like this young man, we're in wonderful shape. Want to also recognize everyone that took part on the October 12th Herbert Foss Memorial Ceremony at Fort Hill Cemetery. Every year we get more and more people, which is wonderful. It's a great ceremony. Thankfully this year we had perfect weather. Last year it was rainy and cold. The surprise at the ceremony was Peter Finney surprised the family by announcing that the newest boat for the rowing team was named Seaman Foss, and he presented the family with a group of framed photos, and it was really, really neat. So thanks to Doug McCaig and the rowing group, and thanks to Peter Finney for a great surprise. And this was the first year we had 3 selectmen there.
There you go.
So it was awesome. Old Colony Masonic Lodge, 85 Central Street, on Saturday, October 18th from 9 to 3, is open to the public, and they've invited everybody to come see your CPC at work. The roof has been completely replaced, and I'm going to call it like a cupola, or is that the right name? Cupola. All of the woodwork has been redone. It looks absolutely beautiful. So please visit. The whole lodge is going to be open. They've got fabulous antiques in there from the Masons going way, way back. So it's a great take. And my last thing is our SNAP. We've had programs for the Special Needs Athletic Partnership kids, and this is momentous. And I think it was in the journal. I haven't seen today's journal. Several of the SNAP kids actually went out on the water in an 8-person cruise shell. And there are some fabulous pictures, thanks to the Doug McCaig and the rowing group, and also Lincoln Maritime, where all the equipment is stored and used. It's been a very successful program, and this is our second session doing it, but this is the first time the kids have actually gone out in the water, and they had a fabulous time. So that's all I have. Nothing? Nothing? I'll take a motion.
To adjourn.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. I'm not even going to ask if anybody...